I tried for years teaching Iyengar yoga the way Iyengar taught me. But the modern world does not like it. Because the modern world wants a class which 30 years ago used to be a 2-hour class. Now you've got to teach it in 45 minutes or 1 hour. And whereas Iyengar, when he taught us, he would teach this posture and he'd spend 1 hour teaching one pose. And he'd say, what I mean when I say this instruction is the following things. Then people would look at him and he'd say, come over here. And 80 people would gather around him and he'd show it. He'd go, look, I'm doing this. And they'd go, oh, that's what you mean. And then after looking, learning, listening, then we understand what he means when he gives the shorthand of turn your right thigh out, lift the outer foot. But if you just give those instructions in a class, people misunderstand them. So unfortunately, the modern world does not want the Iyengar yoga that he taught in the last 20, 30 years. But before that, he used to do Ashtanga yoga and was very, very fluid. And that became popular, but it's not good for modern bodies because modern bodies just haven't got the strength or flexibility. So you can either make people do the full-on poses he taught and give them lots of instructions, teach them one pose in 1 hour like we've done now, if they're prepared to listen. And I'm thankful that you are. But if you just try and teach it in the class, there's going to be confusion. Or if you don't say much, people will feel calm and peaceful and they might get an effect, but probably it's the wrong effect. It might be even painful, but they think that's a good thing. Others will get a bad effect, they won't come back. Or you could just say nothing, you get a bad result, or say a lot, you burn their brain. Okay, so let me do this. One of the instructions that Iyengar would give would be stretch the mat with your feet. Okay, have you heard that instruction? So take your right foot forward and left foot back. So in this position, feel the front of your hip. Push the right foot forward, push the left foot back, and notice how it tightens the front of your hip. Can you feel that? Okay? But the front of the hip's already too tight, isn't it? So is that going to help you? Probably not. So instead of tightening the front of the hip, push the hip. See that movement of stretch the mat with the hip, just lean back, lift up one leg. It tightens that muscle, doesn't it? Now put the foot back on the floor, lean forward, try and pick up your leg. And that's going to tighten the same muscle, isn't it? But now release. Another way of stretching the mat with the feet is to do what we did this morning from here with Leonie. Do that action, that action. So in other words, from this position, push your whole pelvis into the foot. Do that. And notice how that doesn't have to tighten the front of the hip. But if you feel your tummy, push the hip into the foot, then the tummy may engage a bit, but the front of the hip can be softer. And that's a better way in some ways. But another way is to let the body weight fall forward, so then your tummy is soft, your hip is soft, and gravity is pushing the hip forward. And that's a better way. Okay? Then you're not tensing anything. Now, another way you can say it is stretch the mat with your feet. You can also stretch the mat with your feet by considering that the feet are not your core. Your core is where the movement should start from. And so the core is this place here, but the top and bottom of the core include pubic bone at the bottom front, top of hips are the back top, but the sitting bones are the back bottom. And when you do one leg forward, one leg back, the core bifurcates. The right sitting bone has to push forward, left sitting bone push back. So for the right leg, the core starts at your right sitting bone. For left leg, core starts at your left sitting bone. So now take the right foot forward, left foot back, bend the knees a bit, makes it safer. Stretch the mat, not from your feet. Make it so you push the right sitting bone into the right foot, left sitting bone into left foot. Now when you do that, imagine you're standing on a surfboard. Push your sitting bones apart, like you're trying to stretch the mat with your feet, but your feet start at your sitting bones. Now, you need to relax your pelvic floor. When you relax your pelvic floor, breathe into your pelvic floor, which is great when you're pregnant, then you're going to feel power in your legs. Okay, now stop. Now tighten your pelvic floor. Contract it like you're trying to stop going to the toilet. Contract the pelvic floor. Now try and do what we did. Try and stretch the mat apart. And what you'll feel is no power in the legs. Can you feel the difference? Tightening the pelvic floor will block your core and prevent you having power in your legs. So this time, relax your pelvic floor, expand your pelvic floor, breathe into your pelvic floor, and push right sitting bone into right foot, left sitting bone to left foot, and breathe into your pelvic floor. Then you've got power in the legs. And if you feel your abdomen, as you push the sitting bones apart, the abdomen will brace. But you can breathe into it because it's firm but calm. Sthira Sukham Asanam. And there's more to it than that, but it's a start. Okay? So do the left leg forward, right leg back. So if I say to you, I want you to stretch the mat with your feet. So if I'm facing you again, some people stretch the mat with the feet. Just lean back on your back leg, lift up your front leg, and then you'll feel the front of the hip tenses, right? So if you lean forward and now you try and lift the left leg up, that's using your hip flexor to stretch the mat with the feet. It's tightening this muscle, which is already tight too much for you. So instead of thinking, push the foot forward, trying to do that, which won't help you, think of stretch the mat by pushing the sitting bones apart. So relax your pelvic floor, push left sitting bone into left foot, push right sitting bone into right foot. Then the front of the hip can be more relaxed, especially if the knee is straight. Then from there, but I'm keeping the knee bent because it's safe at the moment. Then from there, relax the pelvic floor, push, and notice you've got power. But it's like a martial arts stance. Now come back up. This time, tighten your pelvic floor, like stopping a diarrhea attack, like stopping a Delhi belly or a Bali belly. Then bend the knees. Then from there, pelvic floor tight, push your sitting bones apart, and the legs almost feel like it's a 1962 VW Beetle. There's this like, there's no strength. Can you feel the difference? Because by stopping the pelvic floor, you restrict the process of basti. And basti is the kriya, where if you sit in a pool of water, open the pelvic floor and expand the chest, and the abdomen, it will suck water up your anus. Now that's something which they call a kriya, but kriya is the first stage of hatha yoga. The second stage of hatha yoga is asana. Third stage is mudra, which is energy control. Once all those things have been played with, then you can think about pranayama, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Now, when you're doing Ashtanga yoga, there is yama and niyama. Then there's asana. When you come to asana, do you forget about ahimsa? Do you forget about satya and asteya? No, they have to be part of the asana. So similarly, when you do asana with hatha yoga, then kriya has to be part of it. So you always have to feel like you can suck up your pelvic floor. Now, suck up the pelvic floor doesn't mean tighten it. It means imagine your pelvic floor is the end of a straw. So hold an imaginary straw and suck. But now pinch the end of the straw, try and suck. Can't suck. So what we want is the end of the straw is our anus. That has to open up. That's called basti. So if you open the pelvic floor like expanding the anus, that should happen on every in-breath. So left leg forward, right leg back. Open the anal mouth. It's called basti, it's called Ashwini Mudra. With the anal mouth open, push the sitting bones apart, like you're trying to stretch the mat with your feet, but sitting bones start at the core. Feet start at the core. Then breathe into your anus like you're sucking through a straw, where the end of the straw is open and it's your anal mouth. Push and you'll feel you have strength. And you have power here. But there's firmness but calmness. That should be in every standing pose.